Board games, board games. I'm talking about board games, but I'm not gonna shout. I am starting off this streaming with a little bit of singing, and today I'll think about the name of the things that I played, the name of the game. The name, I guess, tells you all about the game that you're going to play, but again, I do not shout. We'll discuss what it means for all of us, what's a good game, what's a bad game, and maybe not come to any conclusion. But anyway, board games. I am talking about board games, and I'm not gonna shout. Hello and good morning, good afternoon, good whatever it is. Hello to me, it is lovely to see you. I hope that you're generally well. And I was going to say, I hope that it's a little bit warmer where you are, but when it's negative 15, I don't think it makes much difference if it gets to like negative 13 or whatever. I don't even know what it gets to in the summer. But anyway, I hope that everyone is generally well. And hello, Jaja Gabo. It is lovely to see you. I know who you are, of course, but for identity reasons, I'm not going to say your real name. It is lovely to see you. And oh my gosh, Timmy says that in Nova Scotia it is negative 20 degrees. That is incredible. And hello, Games by Manuel, and thank you very much for following this busy broadcast, as it says. Um, as always, 10 a.m. UK time, I am doing a stream, Busy Beats and Board Game Blether. Today, inspired by my own search to rename one of my games, and also an article by Dicebreakers a couple of days ago, I'm going to think about what is a good game name. What does that even mean? A game's name does make a difference, and I believe that very much. But what's a good game name? What's a bad game name? I don't really know, but maybe that's something that we can discuss. But yes,
What's a good game?
regardless, thank you very much for the lovely words, Jaja. And with wind chill, it is even colder in Nova Scotia. So basically, what I'm hearing is that maybe I want to check the temperature before I go to places. Maybe I want to never go to Nova Scotia, to be honest. That does not sound welcoming at all. Anyway, before we get to the main topic, which is going there at the bottom, I want to ask everyone, what are some of your recent highlights, living life and seeing the sights, recent highlights, playing games and other delights, recent highlights. What have you enjoyed recently? What have you done recently? Yesterday, I did a wee bit of pondering about games. I was thinking about my game. It's not got a title, but it's a game about, how should I put this? Turning over cards that feature objects. Again, this is not the name. These days it's hard to tell, but it's about turning over cards that feature objects and then trying to find cards that match all the attributes that you see upon other cards. This is meant to be a potential pitch to to a big publisher. And so I think it will actually work better with a few dice, which is something that they can do. I also was invited by someone who was feeling incredibly anxious about coming over on a Friday. They phoned me. I'd given them my phone number. They said, "Oh, can you meet me? I live in Angel." They bought me half a pint. We had a talk. They played a couple of my games. I was quite surprised how much they struggled with a game about quickly grabbing creature stats are totally different and watching out for turnips. They and we played Wibble, and they weren't much of a gamer. They hadn't heard of Settlers of Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne, but they were trying to make a collectible card game and also a big open world digital game. That was surprising to me. I tried to explain to them that, frankly, a collectible card game or trading card game, whatever you want, it does need a big budget. I advised them that you probably don't want to do that unless you've got access to at least £100,000 already. And you need a lot of money to spend on the marketing of such a thing nowadays if you want it to take hold. And it felt like both of their ideas were very beyond their grasp, and it was sad. But I said, look, if you want, maybe this could be realigned to be a game within a box. It could be a self-contained game. Does it need to be collectible? Does it need to be tradable? I mean, what are you really wanting? What ideally would happen to this game in 10 years' time? And again, they were struggling to answer, but it there were other things going on. It felt like they might have had some cognitive challenges. They felt very scared. They didn't want to engage in an environment where they met more than one new person at a time. So I don't know whether they will be able to come to any of the playtests, which is quite sad. But anyway, I cycled over there. It got me out of the house. It was nice. Did a bit of shopping, bits of reading, played a few games on Board Game Arena, and finished a game of Seven Wonders Architects. Feels incredibly random to me. Anyway, those are some of the things that I've been up to of late. Jean-Jacques Boss says Robert Frank, a very famous photographer, claimed Nova Scotia was the best place to live. Him and June, his wife. Well, I mean, hopefully you're feeling a little bit of that to me. Manuel says the CCG market requires a lot more money and effort than people think. But I guess Magic's success inspired a lot of people. I mean, this particular person had played Yu-Gi-Oh, but then wasn't super familiar with Magic, the Gathering. Again, I suggested to them, I tried to be diplomatic, I suggested to them that they might want to do a bit more research into more things. Timmy says, Scotia is nice for the entire week of summer. I like that. One season that lasts just 1 week. Maybe one day I will come over for that one season. Anyway, if you've got any questionably quick questions, then feel free to ask right now. Otherwise, I'm going to go to brilliant thing. What's a little thing which is brilliant? I'm going to say words. I mean, we never really stop to think about words as we're speaking them, do we? But I think about words because as board game design is still relatively new, or we keep advancing, we keep generating new words, and it's really interesting to see almost the formation of a language, if you know what I mean. And things like positive feedback loop, negative feedback loop, worker placements, these things allow us to think about games in a different way by having words that we can communicate with. If I say, okay, I'm thinking about making a game that's a cross between Quacks of Quedlingburg and Exploding Kittens, with everyone drawing from a central deck and then you decide when to drop out or not, I've given you an idea of what you'll be doing, but I've done it all using my words. Now, of course, it's important that these words transmit meaning, but it doesn't really matter whether someone uses words in the correct manner or not, whether someone says dice to use for just one die, or whether someone says mice instead of mouses. because for the record, if it's an animal, the plural is mice. If it's a computer thing, the plural is technically meant to be mouses. But it doesn't really matter. What matters is that we are able to transmit information. And that's why, in my opinion, words are a brilliant thing. And hello, Time Roller. It is lovely to see you. Thank you for joining by. Such a delight. And I hope that you're well. As I always say, feel free to comment, ask questions, from like, follow. I'm going to get into the main topic today. It might not be a very long show, but it's all about what is a good name. What is, yeah, that's a game. A game's name matters, and I'm going to get into this in just a minute. But yeah, if you want to comment, ask questions, then that is why I do a live stream, because I want the input. Let's start off talking about a game wherein you blether, a Scottish word meaning to talk at length, at a fast rate, without necessarily making very much sense, using as many word cards as possible as you spout a stream of consciousness, and I can't remember the rest of the game name, but yes, this is here an image that I uploaded quite a while ago. The name of this game was inspired by that article pops up in my phone's newsfeed, says Time Roller, talking about the dicebreaker article that I'm going to be discussing. So, why do games' names matter? Firstly, they give us an idea of what to expect. Secondly, they set the tone. Third, they draw people in. And that, from a publisher point of view, is probably the biggest deal. And I guess fourthly, they can inspire the entire game. Actually, let me get rid of that just for a moment and talk about Couple and abandon all artichokes. So, Couple is a game by myself for the L deck, and here are the rules. It's for 2 players. It's going to be the game of the month next month on the L deck Twitter. There's a little love heart because the idea is that you're 2 players, you're cooperating, you're moving cards back and forth. And this all started with the name. Ages ago, I had a deck. Someone else had suggested, oh, you could have like Wordle, Fable, Alphabetical, Phrasal. Just, oh, that's really nice. Alphabetical, Fable, Phrase. Yeah, this is. And then I changed Wordle to be Wibble, and we came up with a new name for Grabble. But then at that point, I was like, okay, all of these names should be misspelt. I don't want them all just to sound the same. I want them all to also be visually the same. And I decided, okay, after a bit of a Facebook poll that I was deciding between IL, EL, ILL, and ELL. People decided that the I makes it look like a pharmaceutical drug. And so I went with the ELL, which I was not sure. People went with this. And I was, okay, what other game names could we have? We could have Terminal, Couple. Oh, Couple, that sounds interesting. Couple inspires me. Couple, that means that it's going to be a 2-player game. That means that you're going to be cooperating. That means that it should be a game that's perfect for couples. At the start, this game was actually designed so that you could spoon whilst playing it, so that one person could be behind the other, so that you could be looking at both the decks, and one person could only see one of them. But yeah, that was not practical. So, and also the game wasn't quite working. It was a bit difficult to do that asymmetry of information. And so I ended up with these 2 decks that each player is playing or contributing to things. And then in one of the shops where I was playing testing it, actually with the shop owner, we just naturally had 2 decks. And I was, oh, these 2 score piles, we shouldn't just be adding them together to work out our total score. we should make sure that they're perfectly matched. And all of that came about from the name couple, because I was trying to evoke that sense of how can you pretend like you're the, you're working together, you're cooperating as much as possible. Game names can inspire things. Um, just looking at Abandon All Artichokes to see which of these images I'm allowed to copy. There we go. So let's Abandon All Artichokes. Lovely game by Emma Larkins. And this is famous because Emma Larkins came up with a long list of names. Abandon All Artichokes, Beat, Bold, Bamboo, and all sorts of names. And some people, in reply to this comment, said, "Oh, I would buy that game, Abandon All Artichokes." And Emma said, "You understand that this is not a game that already exists. I have no idea how this plays, that's just the name." And they just said, "Yeah, but I love it." And so that was really good, because not only was the name clearly drawing people in, but it was also then something that inspired you. And because the name led to the mechanics, hopefully the name also gives you an idea of what the game's all about. You start off with a bunch of artichokes, and each turn you draw one of these vegetables. The carrot allows you to discard two. The beetroot, the cheeky one, allows you to swap, and maybe you give them an artichoke and you take one of their good cards. Broccoli allows you to get rid of an artichoke, but only if you've got at least 3 in your hand. Peas, like, they all do different things. It's a kind of like you're adding things to your deck, but then you're also getting rid of things out of your deck. Some people call it a deck wrecker rather than a deck builder, but ultimately there's 2 ways to win. Actually, there's one way to win. You draw a hand. Each turn you draw 5 cards from your deck. If you have no artichokes, you win. So there's 2 strategies that you've kind of got to be doing a bit of both. If you get more and more and more good cards, which are anything that's not an artichoke, then that's obviously increasing the probability of you drawing a non-artichoke. On the other side, if you get rid of your artichokes actively, then you're reducing the chance of you drawing an artichoke. So you've got the carrots that, hey, you get rid of 2 artichokes as well as, and that's brilliant. But then you've got the corn. The corn doesn't get rid of anything, but it allows you to draw another non-artichoke card into your hand, and you can combo things. And then the pepper allows you to put more things on top of your deck, which is really interesting because then it allows you to reuse things, guarantee that reuse. It's quite powerful, especially in the early game, and it can also be powerful in the late game, ensuring that you've got that extra guarantee that at least 1 out of your 5 cards is not an artichoke. Time Roller says maybe call it a deck adjuster, which I like, or a deck modifier. Anyway, you're building it, you're reducing. Anyway, it's a deck adjuster. Manuel says the game looks lovely, but I didn't find the name that enticing. I guess I like artichokes. That's fair, but the name gives you an idea of what it's all about. The name is light, it's fluffy, it's joyous, it's got that alliteration. You wouldn't come to Abandon All Artichokes and expect to play an intense game. Whereas if you play a game like Food Chain Magnate, let's be honest, like Magnate, I'm not even sure how to pronounce that word. Magnate, Food Chain Magnate. Is it Magnate or Magnet? Or, now I feel like I need to look it up on a dictionary after this and check. But anyway, the point is that that's not a word that I hear used all that often. And if you've got a weird kind of, I'm going to call it advanced word like that like it's not something that people in primary school would necessarily know. Manuel says it's Magnate and Time Roller Magnate. Thank you very much for the information. So anyway, Food Chain Magnate. And you kind of assume that it's going to be a bit more involved. maybe a bit more complex. Teotihuacan, you see that name and you're, oh, how do I pronounce that? You see Azul and you think, okay, this is going to be a bit abstract. You see Yogi and you think it's going to be, probably something to do with moving your body because yogi, is this to do with yoga? I mean, you might also think of Yogi Berra, the baseball player. You might also think of Yogi Bear, the Hanna-Barbera cartoon based on Yogi Berra, which I was unaware of until. But yeah, I think that the name is very important to give you to set expectations and draw the crowd, but ideally draw the right crowd. So Manuel says they weren't enticed, but maybe you're just not within the right crowd for Abandon All Artichokes. And Timmy, stay comfortable, stay warm, keep your toes, keep that blood circulation, many hugs. I mean, I would be under a quilt if I were in that sort of place. Anyway, so that leads me to, I guess I was also talking about a game wherein you bled, or a Scottish word we need to talk at length at fast rate without making very much sense, using as many words as possible as within a minute. As this game's name is about 2,000 words long. It takes about 8 minutes to say. It's intentionally ridiculous. If I go to the Board Game Geek name, it is, yeah, you can see here, long name, that's Abandoned Artichokes, and yeah, you can sort of see what I've been looking at, but most games are just one line, and then, yeah, that's like a few lines, that's a long name, but then that's not even the full name. The full name is there. That is the full name of the game. I can't get it all on one screen, but that is the full title. Anyway, the point is that it was inspired by a short list of long tabletop game names. It was let's see if I can find it very quickly. It was. Oh, I just realised that I wasn't showing you. But the full title. Oh, so that's the truncated version, and that's how the different game names appear on the side. And yep, long name, very long name. It doesn't even appear on one screen. Anyway, so you've got Bugsy's list of. Here you go. The longest game name. It's almost like. It started off with this one. A game where an enclosed, short young lady, a perfect class representative, a slightly elder classy maid, a normal high school girl with the aura of a hamster among others, try to win an unlucky-looking girl-faced butler with a debt of about 160 million yen. There's cross-dressing too. That is the title of the game. And even in the original Japanese, it's pretty gosh darn long. I think that this is meant to be a joke of how long it is. And for a while, this was like, wow, that's ridiculous. And it is pretty gosh darn ridiculous. And someone's like, okay, this is because there's miles between it, and infinity's as big as you can get. But then, Friedman Fries said the name of this game is actually Kings and all of these things. And I was looking at that and I was thinking, what would it take to be on this geek list? I want to be on that geek list. Could I make a game just to be on this geek list? This was when I was getting into self-publishing, and I thought, maybe I could. And that's why it's still away from self-publication, but I'm publishing it specifically to win this geek list. And yes, yep, that is, so that inspired me to think, how can I make a game that makes sense with a really long name? Well, what if you were saying lots of words at once. Would that be interesting? Well, if you've got a timer, well, maybe if you've got to use all of these words that's all on cards, maybe that is interesting. And then I talked about it with JP Treen and then prototyped it, and it actually seemed to be interesting. And then I played it a few times, and it's actually Rose Atkinson says it's her favourite game of mine that I've ever designed. And, she's played most of my stuff. But, yeah, this, as you can see, names can inspire things, and even if the name doesn't, and also I think that is going to pull in people where it's like, yeah, this is a ridiculous name, and then you've got this one box that's just words all the way around. Time Roller, thank you for that definition. I do appreciate it. I was aware of the definition, but I just did not know how to pronounce it. It's one of those things that I've read, but I've never actually used in conversation. Manuel, going back to the first title, says there is a trend amongst Japanese fiction to use names that are as long as they can. And yeah, using a game name as long as you can, I don't think it's young adult fiction. Okay, thank you. Young adult fiction, that's very different. Anyway, so yeah, people have said to me with my recent things, oh, why don't you make this even longer? But no, I don't want to make it 2,000 words. I want to make it something that people would actually say and use as a name. Sure, a game about quickly grabbing creatures that are totally different and watching out for turnips is pretty long, but it's just short enough that you can sort of keep using it and be like, yeah, this is kind of ridiculous what I'm doing. And Chris just, yeah, Chris basically almost refuses to use them when we're talking to each other because we might use the name like 3 times within a sentence. But yeah, it's. I think that Wee Whimsical Creatures was the original name for a game about wee whimsical creatures and trying to identify them after someone makes noises. And that was me pushing into the Victoriana style of this game is going to describe exactly what it's about. But that actually feels like a very useful thing because people know what they're getting. And it's like, hey, would you like to play a game about drawing creatures, complimenting the drawings, then complimenting the compliments? And then you might be thinking, well, that sounds like something I won't want to do, but it gives you an idea, right? It gives you an idea of roughly what you'll be doing. Anyway, the point is that someone might ask, oh, cool, what's the name? To which I would respond, oh, it's called a game about drawing creatures, complimenting the drawings, then complimenting the compliments. And this would be in the future when I've actually printed it, and I would show them the title card, and it would say that, and oh, cool. Let me move to this Twitter poll. For future, I decided that I wanted to make it a little bit more self-explanatory. And I wanted to say counting your turnips or counting turnips because you're not really watching out for them. You're counting them. And Time Ruler asks an interesting question. Do you feel fear that people will confuse it as the description and not remember the name? Not really. I think that it's almost like I think it makes it more memorable because once I start saying a game about, and that there is no other game name on Board Game Geek that starts off a game about except for the ones that I've put there. And so I kind of feel like a game about blah 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 blah, blah is going to be every busy bargain bag, and it will be a source of continuation in the same way that some games they've got title, subtitle like Dungeons and Dragons, Rays of Ravencroft, I mean, I am getting the words wrong, but you know what I mean, right? Um, Sushi Go, party. Obviously, that's just adding a word to the end of the title, but that's keeping clear continuation. I'm trying to think of a better example. Um, like you, by having similarity within titles, like all the Paco games, they are 3 letters long. Q, Gem, um, Bly, Taj, and then all the key games like Key Flower, Key Market, Key to London, Cathedral, and it got to the point where people were like, "Oh, I played Key Forge and I was disappointed that it wasn't um, done by Richard Breeze." Ha 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 ha! Obviously, they knew that it was a Richard Garfield game, and they're making a joke because at this point, if you see a game that starts with Key in it, 90% chance it's going to be by Richard Breeze. And I'm glad that I made myself understandable. And yeah, all the pandemic games, Pandemic Legacy Season 0, Pandemic Brink of. Anyway, yeah. So, anyway, I just want to talk about this poll for a moment. So, there's 43 votes. I acknowledge that's not really statistically significant, but what's really interesting to me is okay, 39 said counting your radishes. So I'm trying to actually work out numbers on the fly. I think about 3 people said I hate everything. So these are, I put in 3 possible options: either a game about grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your radishes, a game about grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting radishes, no opinion, or I hate everything. I put that there because that's subtly different. If you've got no opinion, that means they're all whatever. Or I hate this. Your long names are stupid. I hate your long names. I wanted people to be able to express that. No opinion. Out of 43 votes, unless my maths is wrong, there's 1 person who had no opinion, and 3 people who hates it. That's brilliant. I mean, that gives me delight. I mean, that people actually care about the name. It shows how important it is. And I'm trying. I'm not going to do maths on the fly, but that would mean 39, 19, about 19 people, maybe. That means about 17 people voted for counting your radishes, and about 21 people counting radishes, but only 1 person had no opinion. Now, my point is that sure, people will have an opinion about the most mundane things, and if you've got no opinion, it's as likely that you will click a button as you will just skim by. But I see it all the time that I ask, would you like this? Would you like that? Or do you have no opinion? And I get quite a few people say, no, I have no opinion. People do actually click that button because people enjoy clicking buttons and seeing the results. And I think that's a really valuable thing that Twitter does, that it hides the results until you actually vote. So it doesn't corrupt the results. You don't vote just to be the popular person. You don't vote just to change the results. You vote based on what you want. And that's why I always have I don't want to vote for anything, I just want to see the results kind of option, 1 or 2 of them. And here, yeah, we got Cheeky Parrot says, so many words which makes it stand out, you might as well have your. And Mike Bell Soul says, I'm surprised that your radishes is getting less votes, as it, by identifying those radishes as mine, I already care about them just by reading the title. Not Some Muffin says, I feel you could go all in on the length of the title, like maybe a game about grabbing creatures that are totally different, whilst also avoiding deceptively shaped radishes. But I did explain that I'm not trying for the longest ever game name. I've already done that. I'm trying for a moderately length game name which tells you exactly what it's about. But people care, and is the ownership of your better? The reason why I think that counting radishes is winning is because counting radishes, there's a nice grr in it. Your is your radishes. Duplicated letters aren't the easiest thing to say. A game about grabbing creatures that are totally different and counting your radishes. Counting radishes kind of flows off the tongue a little bit better. But again, there's not a lot of votes here, and we all know the problem with going for something when it's like 51-48. Yep, that was a Brexit comment. Yeah, blah, blah, Brexit. Anyway, my point is that people care. I also want to comment on this. Actually, I should probably share those links just so that people can visit them if they want. If you want to do that. Time Roller says, and radishes count. Oh, a game about grabbing creatures that are totally different and radishes count. That feels a bit. I feel like ending on the mundane note and counting your radishes or counting your turnips or counting your beetroots. You kind of, oh, beetroots, what's that got? And it's kind of piquing your curiosity. But, and radish, yeah, I feel like it's more directly telling you what to do. Okay, so this article, if Quacks of Quedlingburg had a better name, it could be the next blockbuster board game. Plus a change in artwork. And this basically summarizes the last 20% of the article. This is not an people talk about clickbait. There is no deception in here. This is exactly what the article is about. I mean, there's an article, it talks about, hey, this is how I got to know about it. Board games have been getting popular. There's gateway games. This is what it's all about. It's about Risk. It's quite a fun game. And more about the game. And this is a review. And it's lovely. And then it gets to the point where you can see the little bits on the side. And now it starts talking about, and yet despite everything that it has, the game continues to linger in relative obscurity. But it's certainly not sold nearly the same numbers of something like Azul, which surpassed over 2 million sales worldwide last year, which doesn't seem to add up with the fact that it feels like the kind of board game that should be receiving mainstream recognition. And in the last two paragraphs tell you, the only explanation I have, unless it's chance, is the name and the artwork. And let me make this slightly bigger so that people can see it. It's got some great alliteration dimension. Doesn't tell you much about the game. It suggests ducks. The length of the name and a questionable interpretation make a confusing title. It doesn't draw new people in. And then they just say, and don't get me started on the terrible thing. And that this paragraph is basically, so yeah, actually, you know what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 11 paragraphs. 3 are talking about what the title suggests. 1 is talking about an introduction, and 7 are a review of the game. It's basically a review of the game that has a more exciting title, and they've done well. This is something that by adding this opinion in, it's gotten people to share it elsewhere. And it's gotten people to share it on Facebook groups saying, do you agree? Do you disagree? What do you think would be a better name? Let me quickly do a bit of stretching. Stretch to left, stretch to right. This helps me sleep better through the night. Stretch this way and the other way, and this helps me feel better throughout the day. And also, I'll drink a little bit. Mm, water. Anyway, so yes, I was taught when I got Quacks as Time Roller, it was difficult to find because it was sold out everywhere. I don't believe the name hindered it. Yeah, I mean, the fact that a game sells out for any amount of time kind of shows that it must be selling pretty well. Does the author know how many Quacks sold? I don't. I mean, it might have sold, for all I know, only like 200,000, which. But yes, it won the Kennerspiel des Jahres, and I think this is an interesting thing. It's been compared to Azul. Azul, and I checked, and so correct me if but Azul won the Spiel des Jahres in the same year that Quacks won the Kennerspiel des Jahres. These are two different awards. Spiel des Jahres means Game of the Year. Actually, Spiel des Jahres. I do apologize to German people who are thinking, oh, Bez, you're pronouncing this wrong. Anyway, Spiel des Jahres, Game of Year. Kenner Spiel des Jahres, Advanced Game of Year. And that's the thing. Is Quacks of Quedlingburg really a simple enough game? What the author is saying, let's see. Addictive gameplay, sure. Accessible nature. You know what? I'm not sure how accessible it is. I've played it a couple of times. Could I teach someone to play it? Sure, it's been when was 2020? It's been 2 years since I last played it. But could I teach someone to play it right now? No, I couldn't. If you gave me a box with all the components, I would have to read the instructions to double check what's going on. There's a lot that I wouldn't be able to remember. It is somewhat accessible, but I would say I can better remember Azul after 2 years of not playing it. And for a true mass market game, I can better remember Exploding Kittens, and I would like to think that people can better remember something like Yogi. I think that's accessible. It's all relative, and the author is, of course, someone who's professionally reviewing board games. Colorful components, replayability, sure. Relative obscurity, again, what is relative obscurity? This is the kind of thing that it's impossible to agree or disagree with. As I said at the start of the show, I met up with someone yesterday who wants to make a game, and they had not heard of Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne. They had heard of Settlers of Catan. Does that mean that Carcassonne and Ticket to Ride are languishing in relative obscurity? Well, compared to Catan, I guess they are. But that doesn't mean that they're doing badly. And yes, Time Roller agrees. This Quacks of Quedlingburg is a much more complex rule set. The author says, I've rarely heard people mention it outside of hobbyist groups. Sure, because it is a hobbyist game, I would argue. It's not sold nearly the same numbers of something like Azul. Again, maybe that's because Quacks of Quedlingburg, it does have a really simple seed, and this morning I was thinking, oh, maybe I could take that bit and then kind of make it so that everyone's drawing from one thing. So it's kind of like Ink and Gold mixed with Quacks of Quedlingburg mixed with Exploding Kittens. That's an idea for a future game that I may or may not actually come to fruition, but that was something that I feel inspired to work on. Anyway, so, but yeah, Azul is fairly involved. For a Spiel des Jahres game, Azul has quite a bit going on, but Quacks of Quedlinburg, there's all these different things. Every single type of vegetable has a different effect. And then you've got to consult the card when you draw the tile out of your bag, and you've even got different sides, and you've got to remember which side to play on. Some of them are meant to be simpler, but there's actually still quite a bit going on. And they all score in different ways, and it's not like they're self-explanatory, like Sushi Go, where Sushi Go, it kind of says on the card, okay, this thing, it scores 2 points, this thing, it scores 3 points, this scores at 1 point, this thing triples your number. And there's few enough in Sushi Go that Sushi Go feels a little bit more approachable, but Quacks of Quedlinburg, it's got the drawing out of the bag, which is already a bit weird. It's got the everything does something different. It's got the whole rat tails. It's got special powers. I can't remember but I seem to remember there's like a secondary resource. Like there's a special power that you can do sometime during the game. There's a lot going on. And yes, if you're comparing it to Azul, which sold 2 million, I would suggest that that's because Azul is fundamentally a simpler game. And that's my main issue with it. It should be receiving mainstream recognition. Again, what do you mean by true mainstream recognition? Is Azul mainstream? I would not. Maybe? Yeah. Sure, I guess. But is it mainstream compared to Scrabble? No. Hell no. Heck no. Is it mainstream compared to Monopoly? Heck no. Is it mainstream compared to even Bananagrams? Maybe? Like, is Azul... Yeah, I think that Bananagrams is probably... I don't know how many... Maybe I might be able to find that out, but I know how many Bananagrams sold in 1 year in the UK, and I can tell you that it's a lot. I also know how many Yogi sells each year worldwide, and it's about half as much as Bananagrams is selling in the UK each year. And partially that's because, the banana brings in people. Bananagrams, okay. Anagrams, oh, bananagrams, oh, that's cool. It's like you're making words. That's a cool title, sure. And this is not to disagree that a name matters. Um, it doesn't tell you much about the game, says the person. That's true. It suggests it might involve ducks. Yep, I agree. And the front cover has terrible artwork. Yeah, I kind of agree that a lot of German games do come with this kind of painterly 80s fantasy style thing. It is a bit more bright than the typical Kalis thing. At least there's no scowling people. At least everybody looks a wee bit happy. But, it doesn't look exciting. I mean, obviously, Potion Explosion was already gone, but if there was, some bright explosion thing happening on the front or something, that would... But, yeah. Mainstream for me, says Manuel, is when it starts appearing in stores that aren't dedicated to board games. In which case, yes, Asmodee can make basically any game mainstream by that definition, because Asmodee can get any game into Waterstones, a bookstore in the UK, and if Asmodee tells Waterstones this is going to do well, Waterstones will listen to them. And so yes, also is let me just stop the screen for a moment. This is terrible, but who published Quacks of Quedlingburg? Quacks of Quedlingburg. Um, Board Game Geek. There we go. Schmidt-Spiele. So good for Schmidt-Spiele. They don't have as big a marketing budget as Asmodee does. That is something that I would say. Schmidt-Spiele, 999 Games, heard of them? Arclight, CMYK, like. Okay, so these are the publishers who are involved with Quacks of Quedlingburg, and Schmidt-Spiele being the original, but none of them are really massive people. When you compare it, I mean, Asmodee doesn't own Schmidt-Spiele, whereas when I look at Azul, let me just yeah, so when we look at Azul, like Plan B games, like it's like, look, these people with the backing of Asmodee are going to have more of a marketing budget, and Asmodee has continued to make sequels. Summer Pavilion, the other one, but like yes, Queen's Garden and two more were Stained Glass of Sintra. Anyway, the point is that there's more of a marketing budget, and yeah, good for Alex. Alex has written an article that it has gotten clicks, has gotten people to share it, but the fundamental premise that Alex seems to be making is that it would have done much better if it had a better name plus better artwork. I'm not disagreeing that it could have done better. It might not. But what I will say is that the amount of impact that has, they are completely ignoring the complexity of the game, the marketing budget of the publisher behind it, and yeah, that's basically it. The complexity and the marketing budget of the publisher behind it, to my mind, are far bigger impacts. Settlers of Catan. What is Catan? That's not a real place. That's a long title. Still did pretty well. Monopoly itself is kind of a long word to have as a game title. And sure, having said all of that, having spent a while disagreeing with the author, I agree with the fundamental premise that a game name does matter. Oh my gosh, I just realised it's almost an hour, and that's why. Oh, these are a lot closer than they used to be. That's why I think it matters when if it had been like an 80-20 split, I'd been like, okay, that's it. As it is, if it finishes like this, I'll probably just go with whatever I personally decide. And I'll maybe, rather than just going with the popularity vote, I'll think about what makes sense for the series as a whole. But yeah. So that's basically it. Hello, David. Thank you for watching. Who suggests that my current game should be called Turnip or Beast? No, that's not the kind of name that you give a Betty Bargain Bag. Betty Bargain Bags have to be at least 10 words long, and they have to start off a game about, and they have to give you an idea of how to play the game and what the key hook is. That's a busy bargain bag name. Anyway, thanks, Dave, lovely friend from Australia. Um, Manuel says, I think one important factor is that the name is memorable. If you can't recall it or spell it, it can impair word of mouth. You might not be able to bring it up in conversation or spell it for someone. That's very true. Quacks of Quedlingburg. It is a really weird thing, and it sounds kind of like a complicated game, doesn't it? Before I played it, before I knew what it was, I thought, oh, Quacks of Quedlingburg? What's that about? That sounds like a really, like, involved Germanic game. It sounds like a Euro game where you're making a lot of strategic decisions. And the truth is, as we've established, it is relatively complicated. There's a reason it didn't win the Spiel des Jahres. It wasn't nominated for the Spiel des Jahres. It was what nominated, and it won the Kenner Spiel des Jahres. And I agree with the judges. It is more complicated than Azul. It is more complicated than Settlers of Catan. Maybe a little bit. It's definitely more complicated than Ticket to Ride or Carcassonne, in my opinion. And yeah, but names are super important. And let's do the whole wrap up thing. But first, over to you. What are you up to? You can share, but only if you want to. So, if you've got any other thoughts, then feel free to share. Yeah, let me know down below or down to the side or wherever it is. What do you think? And what are you up to today? What are you going to be doing? Is there something you're excited to do? Is there something that you need to do? Is there something that you are doing that's fun and frivolous? Is there something that's super serious? I've got an appointment at the nail salon because I had these nails done a while back. I'm talking, but I'm going to half an hour and then I'm going to do some. Yeah, my plan is to either do some drawing or some writing of things in spreadsheets. Maybe pitch a game. I've got a couple of contacts that I believe would like a game that I've got in my mind, but yeah, and then that's basically it. Going to, if I can draw, if I find the energy to draw a bunch of radishes and a bunch of creatures that are totally different, yeah, that would be good. And then Chris can scan them all in tomorrow. That would be really good. I also need to go to the bank. Anyway, that's what I'm up to. Time Roller is having a game night tonight. That sounds fantastic. And Time Roller also wants to compare Quacks to another bag builder. Not Corridor. Is it the one that start Quarriers? Is that the one you mean, Quarriers? The one where it's dice and then you pick the dice out of the bag and then you roll the dice? Timmy, are you saying your tummy hurts? Sorry, Tomrus. It seems that's Tommy. I'm sorry, and I hope that you feel better soon. Dave Dawkins is suggesting names for my busy bargain bags. I'm telling you, that's a great name, Beat or Beast. Although I would spell it B-E-E-T and then make it about beetroot. That is a great name if a publisher wants to take it and do their own thing. But I'm not going to... you won't see any normal game names from my busy bargain bags. That is a hard line that I've set. I mean, it wasn't there 5 months ago, but it's there now, and I am committed to it. That is the new rule. Oh, Time Roller says it was discs with monks and knights and farmers on them. Has the name different people pronounced differently? Is it the one by Dave Serlin, perhaps? Anyway, let me know what you're up to, and if you're watching this after the facts, what do you think about game names? what do you think is the advantage of a game? Do you think that game names really influence? How much do game names influence what you buy? I am interested to know. Would you look at a game more closely or not look at a game because of the name? I've got to be honest, yes, absolutely, I would. Because with 6,000 games coming out every year, I'm going to look at the game name, maybe look at a little thing of the front cover, and I'm going to make a decision based on that. And if I'm at the shops, yeah, based on the box, based on the colors they use, based on the title, absolutely. If it's 18 whatever, I'm going to assume that it's about stocks and making tracks and railroads. If it's got words that aren't words that I usually use in spoken language, then I'm going to assume that it's a fairly complicated game. If it's a game name that's happy, and then I'm going to assume that it's a bit more joyful. So yes, absolutely, I think that the game name does tell you what it's about. Orleans shouts Manuel, great game. Sure. I'm trying to understand, is your point that the name attracted you to it? Or are you saying that that's what you're going to um, play tonight? I'm slightly confused. Anyway, recap and wrap up before I finish up. So, yes, what I've said is that I disagree with the premise of let's I disagree with the premise of the article because I think that they are ignoring the fact that Azul is simpler and Azul has more of a marketing budget. Game names are important, that's why I will check what other people think of my games. Game names can inspire things. Game names can inspire things like Couple or a game about a game wherein you bled or a Scottish or Abandon or Artichokes. Game names can draw people in. Frankly, I see this with a really long title and I'm like, oh, what's that about? And it does make me want to play it. Game names can, yeah, give you an idea of what the game's about. And those are the three reasons why I think a game name is important. Because game names can inspire the game, but even for the public, it draws people in and it informs people. So it makes sure that the right people are going to be playing the game. If you don't like super light games about abandoned artichokes, oh, that's whimsical, that's a bit of fun, and that's fundamentally the target audience. Well, if you don't like the notion of abandoning your artichokes, maybe you weren't in the target audience anyway, so it's fine if it turns you off. And Orleans is what I would compare Quacks to before Azul. Closer complexity says, ah, that's the. Okay, I get it. Thank you, Manuel. Orleans, I'm not super familiar with Orleans, but that is the game that Time Roller is comparing things to. Anyway, that is something that maybe I will check out. But again, I prefer to work on games that could be mass market, by which I mean games that most people would be able to play, and wouldn't be put off by the rules. Most people would be able to play it easily out of the box. Something that could sell like millions of copies. I mean, Yogi's not sold millions of copies. It might, like given enough time, but could fit in a clamshell tin. Yeah. Like something that, like you could imagine in W.H. Smith. Yeah, that's kind of what I mean by a mass market game. Something that you could imagine being on W.H. Smith. I mean, Waterston's is kind of becoming a book retailer, but also doing a good number of board games. Whereas somewhere that's not like John Lewis, anything in John Lewis, that's definitely mass market. Anything in WH Smith before they go bust, because they've got problems. Yeah, like they've got a lot of business problems. Anyway, but yeah, you know what I mean. But if you want to check me out, I am stuffbybez.com, stuffbybez.bigcursor.com to check out my stuff, twitter.com/stuffbybez, instagram.com/stuffbybez, twitch.tv/stuffbybez is the best place to watch my streams, YouTube is the best place to watch it after the fact, and Discord, if you like chatting with other people, then join the Discord, stuffbybez.com/discord. If you want to find out what I'm talking about on future days, then check out stuffbybez.com/streams. I don't have a specific topic tomorrow, but if Chris is able to join me in time, we might be doing a finalist run through for the LDEC Design Competition 2021. So I've narrowed it down to about 3, 4, 5-ish things, and we'll play through them and discuss them. Friday will just be 5 minutes. At some point before the end of the weekend, I will talk about resolutions, and no, sorry, not resolutions, predictions. I'll be making some predictions for 2022, and I've got a game that I'm going to try playing in the Discord. The game lasts about a year. Give any predictions that you want. People then vote whether they think your prediction will happen or not. You get points for predicting other people's predictions correctly, whether it will happen or not, and you also get points for making predictions correct, but you get more points for making a prediction if other people say that it won't happen. But yeah, I'll explain that in the weekend, and then next week I'm having Adam Porter from Wales, lovely designer. I'm having Dina Ramsey, and yep. Share, spread the word if you want to. Thank you, everyone. It's been a great chat. Thank you, Time Roller. Thank you, Manuel. Thank you, Dave Dawkins and Timmy and everyone who joins in. And yeah, the game lasts about a year. I see how you could be shocked by that. But you wait here to see if the predictions come true. You only actually play it. It only takes you about. It's not like if you say a game of chess, if you play it in a particular, but you make the predictions, and then the predictions are for 2022, so you need to wait until the end of the year to see if it comes true or not. And so basically, my idea is that everyone will have until the end of January to make their predictions, to set their votes, and then we'll count up the score and see who got the best score at the end of the year. Oh, I'm glad that you like the sound of it. So hopefully once I've worked it out, it will definitely be done by the end of the weekend. So please join my Discord if you aren't already there. And yes, join it, and I'll make a new channel for this one thing. Anyway, Time Roller says Target is making designer games more mass markets. Yeah, 100%. When you've got something that's already sold hundreds of thousands of copies, yes, Target might be willing to do something like Jaws of the Lion, which is a simpler version of Gloomhaven, but even Jaws of the Lion is still a very complex game. Even for people within the hobby space, it's still, a thing. Time Roller says it takes a year, and it's about a year. But thank you, everyone. I want to say there is only one thing left to say, and it is with a heavy heart. But do not fear, because I'll be here tomorrow at 10 UK time, and then I'll be there the next day, and so on. So for now, get on your way, as I say, bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for so long. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now it's time to go. Bye, 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 bye. This is a goodbye song. Bye, 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 bye. Thank you for watching along. Bye, 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 bye. This is the end of the show. Bye, 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 bye. And now It's time to go. Bye bye, everyone. Have a wonderful day. Bye bye.